Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name is Ross, and as always told, out of Voice Radio. So today, we're looking at a new Oranguru card. And here's the thing, right? When it comes to this Pokemon, we've seen... Well, as it stands at the moment, we've seen 3 cards, and 2 of them have been really good. Now, the only Psychic one we've had is kind of rubbish. There's nothing too special about it. But then we had the Oranguru from Sun and Moon, which let you draw until you had 3 cards in hand. That's seen a lot of play. And we had the one from Ultra Prism with Resource Management, lets you put 3 cards from your discard pile on the bottom of your deck in any order. And recently that has really become a meta deck with Shedinja, where it's just a big disruption deck. I've done a video about it. I'll try and remember to pop a link in the description. Well, ladies and gentlemen, Oranguru is back, and frankly, we've got fairly high hopes at this stage. It's kind of lulled us into a bit of a false sense of security. But is it actually any good? Well, if we start off looking at the basics, it's got 120 HP, which is... well, it's not great. We'd rather have 130 because that avoids some key numbers, but they always have 120, so we can't be too upset. It's got a weakness to fighting, which is kind of annoying with stuff like Buzzwole running around, and Pikachu and Zekrom being hit for weakness by fighting means people will play more fighting. And a retreat cost of 3 means you cannot use buff padding to get more HP, and you cannot use Pokemaniac in order to search it out. So there are some downsides here, shall we say. Boo, hiss, etc. Oh yeah, and it's a colourless Pokemon, which means you don't get any extra tricks. We're losing double colourless energy, and it's being replaced by triple acceleration energy, but you're a basic Pokemon, so you can't even take advantage of that. Frankly, ladies and gentlemen, the basics here are nothing to write home about. But they weren't for the other Oranguru, and you know what? They were pretty gosh darn good anyway. It's the first attack that really interests me here, because it is an extremely interesting attack. Put a Pokemon card from your hand face down. This is for 1 colourless energy. Your opponent guesses the type of that Pokemon. Reveal the card. If your opponent was correct, they draw 4 cards. If they were incorrect, you draw 4 cards. Return the Pokemon to your hand. Now, this is a really, really interesting one. And I don't know how often this is actually going to work. Because you see, there's plenty of decks out there that essentially play monotyping. So let's say, for argument's sake, you're playing Celebi and Venusaur. Well, that's a grass type. And then you're playing probably Shaman, which is a grass type. And that's it. So if your opponent guesses grass, they're probably going to be pretty good. Now, maybe you're playing multiple Oranguru, in which case there might be a colourless Pokemon in there. But otherwise, it's probably not going great. Similarly, if we look at a Reshiram and Charizard deck, they're going to be playing Reshiram and Charizard, and they're probably going to be playing Volcanion, and then they might be playing a bit of Arcanine. But all of these are fire Pokemon. Now, to be fair, a bunch of them are playing Turtonator, and that is a dragon type, not a fire type, but that's going to be few and far between. A lot of the time, your opponent is going to be able to guess. Now, weirdly enough, in the Oranguru decks we've been seeing up to now, we've got Shedinja, who's a psychic type, and then we're generally playing Slowking, who of course is a water type. And then there's usually a little bit of love for Durant, which is a metal type, as well as this, which is a colourless type. So there's a very good chance that if you're playing it in that kind of deck, you're going to be able to just draw 4 cards. And that's kind of cool. And look, in terms of supporter cards, drawing 4 is not something we do very often. We saw Sophocles lets you draw 4 cards as long as you've discarded 2 from your hand. We saw that Evelyn let you draw 4 cards, just so long as your opponent's active is a stage 1. So it's not easy to draw 4 cards, but the thing is, we're not competing with supporter cards. We're competing with other Pokemon draw. And the real question we need to ask ourselves here Is this better than the alternative? Because I've said it's not often going to work, and if you use, say, a Pokemon communication, you are giving away to your opponent at least one of the Pokemon in your hand. Now, maybe you do this to try and fake them out. Maybe you're playing a Reshiram and Charizard deck and you use Pokemon communication to go and grab yourself Volcanium, hoping your opponent guesses fire because you've got a Turtonator in hand. Maybe you fake them out, but honestly, it's not going to work all that often. So it's not always going to draw you 4 cards. But let's just assume for a moment that it will. Let's just assume for the moment that it is just going to draw you 4 cards. The question is this better than the alternatives? Is this better than other Pokemon we can use to go ahead and draw some cards? I mean, let's take Chatot from Unbroken Bonds. Chatot from Unbroken Bonds, for a single colourless energy, lets you shuffle your hand into your deck, and then you get to draw a number of cards equal to your opponent. How many cards they've got in their hand. And that's not always going to be perfect, and certainly it's shuffling rather than drawing. And shuffling means that you might lose cards you want to keep, etc. But generally speaking, that's not a bad option at all. It's a pretty nice option if you ask me. Or we've got something like Glysaur. Now, admittedly, Glysaur is a stage 1, but by the same token, it's for a single colourless energy, and it's got a second attack that hits for a pretty good weakness. So in that regard, I'm actually kind of a fan of it. I mean, look, we lost Alolan Vulpix, which was our general go-to turn 1 option, just to search out a couple of Pokemon for 0 energy. So maybe there's some time here? But just looking at Unbroken Bonds, I've shown you a couple of other examples. Arguably better examples. And here's the thing, you're not just competing against drawing cards. Because you can do other stuff. And one of the most powerful other stuff things that you can do is the other Oranguru. The one that recovers any free cards and puts them on the bottom of your deck. Now maybe turn 1 that's not perfect, but certainly as we go through, mid to late game, it's going to get so much better. And that's kind of my problem with this attack. I love that you're kind of playing a game within a game with your opponent. That amuses me greatly. And I really like the design of it, and I don't mind the whole drawing 4 cards. That can be pretty gosh darn good. But even when it works, and it won't always work, I think there are better things we can do in terms of an attack, where we're not dealing damage. Now as for the second attack here, this is just plain bad. 3 colourless energy, 80 damage. It's, well, bad. Honestly, ladies and gentlemen, bad is a word that I would use. If we could use triple acceleration energy and we hit for a decent weakness and we still had choice band, I'd be going, well, 220 for a single energy if they're weak. That's going to take out the majority of weak GXs. I'm on board with this. But we can't use triple acceleration energy, and we're not hitting for weakness, and we can't use choice band. And fine, we could use stuff like Welder and we could use stuff like Malamar to get the energy on there, but we've got so many better options if we're going to be using stuff like Welder and Malamar that I don't think it's even really worth talking about for any longer than we have. Let's give Oranguru between 2 and 3 Wassies. We don't give half Wassies. That would be barbaric. It's fun, it's fine, and I love it in a pre-release. In a pre-release, this is amazing. Because in a pre-release, you can play a whole bunch of janky stuff, start with it, and just outdraw your opponent to get a head start. I'm not saying it's useless. I'm saying that certainly in a constructed format, we've just got better options. But I'd like to know what you think, so please do let me know in the comment section. Go nuts, be nice, and then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/TheWassy. patreon.com/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassiePlays, where we talk about a whole bunch of other games that don't even have Pokemon in. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.